Eglinton Crosstown. There was some talk about Eglinton Crosstown earlier. We are constructing. I had a recent meeting with Councillor Cole. Councillor Cole said, gosh, it's nice to be in a meeting where we're talking about construction impacts. Sorry for the mess. But if the PTC or the province had to cancel the job in the first place, maybe it wouldn't be as messy as it is right now. But it's tough slugging right now. It's a 19-kilometer line. Goes all the way from Mount Dennis, Weston Road area, to Kennedy. 10 kilometers is underground. So we have a total of 25 stations. I believe 15 of those stations are actually underground stations. Tunneling is moving forward. The tunnel boring machine, we've bought 4 of them. They're actually manufactured right here in Toronto. They're earth pressure balanced tunnel boring machines for soft ground tunneling, and the project's moving along. We awarded a second tunneling contract that is starting up and building a launch shaft at the just east of Laird Avenue or Braincliff Avenue near the Don Valley, and they'll be tunneling towards Yonge, and these tunnels from Black Creek are tunneling towards Yonge and Eglinton. So the two will meet, pull the machines out, and we've got 10 kilometers of time. Georgetown South. This is along the line in Ed's last map that he had up on his slide deck. We are expanding the tracks. We're doing grade separations in this area to increase the capacity, not only for GO Transit, which runs all the way out to Kitchener now on this line, but also for the Up Express. So a lot of the grade separations that they're doing is going to actually help move more capacity on these lines on the Georgetown South area. Constructing a total of 5 new tracks along the corridor, 1 new bridge structure at Weston Road, widening or modifying 15 other bridge structures, building 7 new overpasses and underpasses to separate vehicle and train traffic, and major track and grade construction civil works. Strachan Avenue overpass, which is one segment of the Georgetown South project, allows trains to travel below street level, which means traffic flow on Strachan Avenue is no longer impeded by rail crossings. So strong, sorry, I say Strachan, because I'm not English enough. States too long. The York Spadina subway extension is shown here. The tunneling is complete. This project is actually funded a third by the province of Ontario, a third by the city of Toronto, and a third by the feds. It's actually part of our problem in terms of building these projects is funding. There is no sustainable and large amount of guaranteed federal funding on these projects. Whereas in the States, you will find that the feds are much more into funding transit projects, so there's always a transit element of their national transportation policy. We don't really have a national transportation policy, and I think that's hurting our large cities like Montreal, Vancouver, and Toronto in terms of lack of funds for transit infrastructure. So even though we've got some projects underway and we're transforming the region, there's still a lot of work to be done. The next wave of priority projects totals $34 billion. We want to build over 500 kilometers of rapid transit projects and GO Rail improvements. We've talked a little bit, and I'll have a little bit of information here about downtown Toronto and what we need to do in terms of capacity relief on the Yonge. So what we call the Yonge Relief Network Study. Here we go again, another study, more lines on the map. I don't know if you have these maps in your in your book here, but here's some more. We are involved with the Yonge Subway. It's the busiest rapid transit line in Toronto, and the GO train service is operating at capacity during peak periods. While the TTC has subway improvements underway with new trains and signaling equipment, it's still going to be at capacity. Yes, the new trains carry more people. Yes, the new signaling system is faster and allows more capacity, but even with that, it's not enough. So the downtown relief line is part of a regional study that Metrolinx, Toronto TTC and the other studies that are being used as resources are looking at. So Metrolinx's take on this is to look a little bit more at the regional network. What do we need to do to the regional network to work with downtown improvements? Whereas the city and the TTC are more focused on doing a project assessment on what are the things and the alignments and the pros and the cons of the alignments in that actual downtown area. So simply just looking at this map, this is what the TTC and the city are focusing on, the downtown core. What's the best way to relieve the network? And where we're looking at more travel demand management, fare policy, land use considerations, improving GO and municipal bus connections into the network. And fare integration is also a part of that in order to improve the network. That study, by the way, should be done by 2015, and a lot of it is going to be contingent on funding. So we'll get back to the funding issue here shortly. Another study that's underway is looking at the North Subway extension up to Steeles Avenue or beyond. A lot of concern about this, that if you don't improve the downtown line, how can you add all this extra capacity by extending further up into York Region? So part of what they're going to be looking at is the timing for this project. What is the best timing? You really need to get going on a lot of these improvements at the same time in order to achieve the goals of these projects. You just can't willy-nilly add lines anywhere into the network without having consequences on that. So that's one of the things that they'll be looking at in that study. So now we get to the investment strategy. Metrolinx was charged with preparing an investment strategy. We did so last June. It was presented to the government of Ontario. It looked at a number of funding sources, none of which are warmly received depending on who you talk to. But it basically, the demand for all these projects in order to fund them and build the network and keep up, because we've really fallen behind. They're paying the price for not building much in 30 years. Is $2 billion a year annually. So if you're going to raise $2 billion a year annually, and you need dedicated funds just for these projects, you're looking at possibly an HST of 1%, some gas tax, fuel tax of 5 cents, other development charges that can be added on to developments near transit infrastructure, and a business parking levy, which didn't go over very well either. So we presented our study. The province immediately put together a transit investment strategy advisory panel. That panel was led by Ann Golden, who used to be the United Way president in the Toronto area. Also Ryerson University. That panel put together their recommendations, builds on a lot of the things that Metrolinx had in its investment strategy, but it had a little bit different take in terms of wanting to move a little bit quicker on the investment tools. That member in the panel, their report was called Making the Move, Choices and Consequences. And they looked at proposed funding strategy that, when fully implemented, would provide between $1.6 billion and $1.8 billion annually for the Greater Toronto-Hamilton area. Of this amount, $400 million would be distributed to local transit projects, along with a 2-year kickstart program to fund tangible, immediate improvements to the network. The panel's recommendations included a dedicated, transparent, and accountable investment trust fund. What we had in the States, where I was working, were a lot of local taxes, sales tax in Santa Clara, Silicon Valley, and those taxes were absolutely dedicated to the project. So you could not spend that money on anything else. It did not go into the general fund. And what we're looking at here is a dedicated tax that doesn't go into a general fund to be doled out for other programs. They have to be spent on these projects. And we really feel strongly about that. Certainly in the States, they felt strongly about it. We spent 9 years on the project side belt to do $2 billion worth of projects. The end of that, the people said, let's go out for another half-cent sales tax and build some more projects. And again, we had to report on where we were on the projects, what was the status of the project, where was the money being spent every year, and there was accountability, and people got it. I think people will support these types of projects if they know that the money is going to be spent on the projects that they wanted and what they voted for in terms of taxing themselves. So, this is very transformative. It's, you know, what many of you and some of you people I've met earlier are actually working on some of these projects with us. It's very transformative, and what we're doing is making a difference in the quality of life for future generations. I guess I'm getting towards the end of my career after 40 years of working in this business. It's kind of uplifting to see a young group here that maybe you're at the front end of this transformative business that we're in. So let me take you through a journey. And this is a real example of Mount Dennis area. We bought the Kodak lands. All that's left on the Kodak land is something called Building 9, which